Hi, everybody. I'm Selena Rezvani, and you're joining Women and Work Culture. This is a live show all about those positive habits and practices for boosting women's leadership. And it's also about, really helping companies and leaders make those bold bets on their female talent. I am here today with Ann Anaya, a diversity leader I have big admiration for. Welcome, Ann.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we're so excited to hear from you today. And I also want to give a big warm welcome to our community. We're always so happy to learn with you every week from our awesome guests like Ann. So tell us where you're joining from today. Say hi and let us know who's in the house. I already see Helton saying hello. Kyle, greetings from Minnesota, Philly suburbs. And hello from Tampa Bay, Anissa. We're so happy to have you all here. And you bring so much fierceness to the table. I want to tell people a little bit about your great background. So Ann joined 3M, her company, in 2013, and she serves today as the Chief Diversity Officer and the Global Diversity and Inclusion Strategic Lead. She actually started her career at 3M, not in D&I, but as counsel for investigation. She moved then into the legal affairs, litigation, and preventative law group, where she was senior counsel. She also received the 3M Gives Award in 2016, and that's the company's highest honor for community service. Wow, awesome, Ann. And prior to all of this, Ann worked for over 20 years as a trial lawyer. So remind me, Ann, not to try to win an argument with you because I don't think that's going to go too well for me.
No.
Right, so and Ann's actually a born and raised Minnesotan. She is married and she has 2 grown children. Community, as we jump in here today, please send us your questions for Ann as they relate to, navigating career, leadership lessons. And I see Natasha joining us from Puerto Vallarta on vacation. Wow, Natasha.
Wow. If only we could be on vacation with her.
I know, that's right. Chitra from London, we're so happy to have you. Big warm welcome. And Teresa Sullivan, welcome to you. So Ann, I want to start at the beginning. And I want to ask you, as a young woman, was there something that gave you an inkling you would be a leader at some point?
I really have never thought of it that way. I certainly, at a very young age, really tried to find my own way, my own path. I always saw things a little differently and wanted to find new and different solutions. Even now, as a leader at 3M, I think of myself more as a team member, driving strategy, surrounding myself with genius people, because a good leader, of course, finds smarter people than themselves to surround themselves and really draw upon skill sets that are different than their own. And what I really like to do as a leader is find ways to amplify that genius within the team. And if you're working toward making something better, finding a good and different solution, putting together opportunities, pushing for positive change, really everybody on the team leads. So that's how I approach leadership.
Wow, that's not something you hear every day. It's really not. And I love that you're making it your own.
Mm-hmm. You hear a lot about servant leadership, and I think there's a component of that in my approach. But servant leadership, I don't think captures this idea of a leader's responsibility of amplifying the skills within the team and finding ways to really allow for those, unique talents and gifts to find their value in whenever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's huge. So I'm hearing team member, strategy person. I think of you as this kind of force multiplier, right? You're allowing everybody to step up as a leader. Really awesome. Anne, I know you're a lawyer by trade, like we covered. When I think about lawyers, I think about that really analytical mindset and that real rigor in being able to make a case for something. I'm so curious how you made the transition from legal person into D&I kind of strategy work.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Not a lot of people with my background go into the chief diversity officer role, but what I have found is, the reason I went to law school is because of my passion for fairness and for equal opportunities. And as a lawyer, of course, you develop strong advocacy skills, but you're guided by data. You're guided by facts. The law provides you a structure for which to move forward and resolve disputes, but you must be guided by facts and data. And so when I moved into this HR role, I approached it the same way. Fundamental fairness and equal opportunity, that's what we push for. It's hard to argue against, right? So as that premise that hopefully everybody can easily adopt, the advocacy skills, of course, come to play. But again, guided by data and facts. So moving away from the raising awareness in hearts and minds, but instead being very laser focused on, here is our demographic data. How are we going to be competitive to have the most diverse and best workforce we can possibly have and build a culture where everyone can thrive?
Wow, awesome. And I think it's very undeniable, right? It's a smart way to change minds or get people's attention to ground it in facts and data. Really smart. And I actually want to put a question up to you that comes from one of our viewers before we, leave the legal profession piece of this to ask, did you have your own process where it was hard? Your own internal battle and strife with leaving legal to move into D&I.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a good opportunity to talk about those individuals that make a difference in your life, that really become your champion. So in this instance, I had to be talked out of legal. I'm the first lawyer in my family, the first professional in my family, spending 20 years building, an expertise. What convinced me, and it's one of my heroes, one of my mentors and champions, Marlene McGrath. She was the former chief HR officer at 3M that hired me into this position. She too was a lawyer and moved away from law into HR. And she said, lawyers are sometimes the hardest to convince to take the lead, because we identify with this thing, this law degree. And the truth is, like so many other professions, it's not the degree and it's not the title, it's the skills. What skills have you developed along the way, and how can you apply them to add value to whatever position it is? And she knew my passion for diversity and inclusion, and she had every faith in me and my skills, that passion would guide me to find ways to apply, my skill sets, my gifts. And so she took a chance on me. She provided me this stretch opportunity. And I will be forever in her debt and forever grateful for that, because this position has been the highlight of my career. It really has. And proactively creating the culture you want to have for yourself and your colleagues and your company has just been a gift beyond measure to be a part of.
So awesome. And we can feel that from you, Anne. I think we all want our Marlene, right? To find.
And we all should be Marlene, right? Because as much as you're reaching up, you have to be reaching back and bringing those behind you so that their path is easier than your own to get to that place where they want to go.
I love it. So find a Marlene and be a Marlene, both ways. Um, and I've heard so many people with COVID and many of the big seismic shifts happening at work, saying, I think maybe I'm ready to look at that role I've had my eye on in another department or division to make a move like you did. What advice would you have for a woman who really wants to show her value to that new group and make the case, I can do this?
Well, I'm going to share something not to do so that people don't make the mistake I made and then tell you something that works. So the one mistake that I made along the way is to come in and say, this is not how you do it. This is how you do it. I have all these ideas and let's start all my ideas. Not a good way to approach it. Instead, the first usually 90 days are all about listening. Listen to those that have been in the group, the team, the division, whatever it is. Understand what is working. Understand what needs to change. And then together build a strategy to not just address those things that need to change, but to build for opportunities of the future. What are the possibilities for this group? Let's put together a strategy for the first year, for 3 years, and then for 5 years. And then there is ownership in the team. You've been, influenced by what they've lived and what they know. They are being benefiting from what you bring that might be new and different perspective. But together you build. And then everyone has, skin in the game.
That's so smart because, I think sometimes it's your instinct to like go in there and dazzle them with your great ideas, right? But there's a danger in that if you're not listening, right? If they're not connecting to reality for that group, and that's powerful, as Natasha says. And hello, Anna and Nora. We're so happy to see you too. And Debbie. I have a question for you I'm particularly interested in because for me, a big part of my leadership journey has been around self-confidence. And I wondered how you have developed and cultivated your self-confidence, especially when you were new as a leader.
Yeah. So, self-confidence, like many things, is a journey. I certainly suffered from a lack of self-confidence early on in my career. It was, I think, a revelation at some point that making mistakes, finding your way is something we're all doing. The idea of learning from your mistakes, growing, is something that, you really have to get used to. You really have to appreciate that without making mistakes, taking chances that are informed, and really, falling forward to find new and different solutions. There's no way to grow as a professional. There's no way to learn and expand your abilities. So finally realizing that. And then the other piece that was really important for me to understand is I was seeking recognition. External recognition. Am I okay? Am I good enough? Have I pleased you? and instead, confidence is something that comes from inside. Do not depend on others' recognition to find your confidence. It's you who has to be convinced that you will succeed. That's where your confidence comes from.
That's a really needed message because especially right now, it's tempting to interpret the likes or the number of little mini approvals we get right on social media as you're doing good. And I love, it's refreshing to think, wait, this is inside.
Yeah.
This is an inside kind of job. One thing that strikes me about your work, Anne, and we see a user asking a very similar question right now, is you work for one of the most innovative companies in the entire world on many levels, right? Product, sustainability, D&I. There's a lot to be said there. How do you keep, your edge? How do you keep that innovation mindset in your own work?
Yeah. So, for me, and everybody has to be true to their own, kind of leadership qualities. But my leadership quality, and you take assessments and you hear over and over again what, kind of confirm where your strengths are. And my strength, my core strength is being a catalyst for change. So I, naturally challenge the status quo. I naturally want to find spaces to challenge the status quo, to find opportunities for different solutions. Something that, kind of just continuously is an approach that, bubbles to the surface for me. But what is also true is I really like mixing up cross-functional teams with skill sets that don't usually tackle these types of questions, and people that don't usually work together. And that to me is like a magic solution of when you're looking for problem solving magic. That's where it happens on a team for me, is that you have new people, new questions, all kinds of different skill sets, tackling a problem and coming up with, things that you could never have dreamed of up until that point. That's, innovation is something that, it's a term I think that's oftentimes overused. For me, innovation is just this really simple thing, which is finding new and different solutions. It doesn't have to be, something necessarily scientific. It doesn't necessarily have to be something, technical. Innovation is something we can do no matter what our background is in how we approach problem solving.
That's really smart. And it's like you have to be willing to mix it up and try it. Because I know sometimes it's tempting when you feel like you just mastered doing it one way to kind of stick with that pattern and keep doing it that way. So this idea of bringing a motley crew together, or saying, why is that a norm here? Like, let's talk about it and put it on the table, is really, it takes courage. And I think it's important.
I mean, you hear all the time, that's the way we do it. That's just the way we do it. So that makes my, hair on the back of my neck go, no, we can't think that way. Again, if you're going to grow, whether as a person or a company, you can't just continue status quo, because you can't, find new and different that way. So, this idea of the one true constant is change. You make that change happen in a way that falls in your favor.
Yeah. Well, and I think Anna asked a really smart question that I want to generalize a little bit, because one of the things I think about with innovation is mistakes. You make mistakes when you innovate, right? You don't get it perfect the first time. And I'm kind of curious if you have any thoughts around taking some initial steps after you've made a mistake. Maybe you didn't listen in the first 90 days and you just try to dazzle.
Yeah. There's always someone else with more dazzle. Right. Dazzle your way through anything. No. I even the word mistake, I'd like to replace it. The idea of, oh, that didn't work, so now, all is lost. Think about all things, that we accomplish that we're proud of. If those things come to us easily, we aren't even so proud of them. It's something that, that happened and it was a good thing. But it's those things that we really had to struggle for. It's those things that we really had to stretch and challenge and maybe, fall and get up and fall and get up. And finally we made it. So are those mistakes? I don't know if they're mistakes, but what they might be is it's a learning journey. And if we think of our career and ourselves as on this continuous path of improvement, where we're learning, we're making progress, there might be a setback, but we're continuing to learn and we're making continuous progress, and we're continuing to improve and grow, developing deeper understandings and wisdom. I just would say own those mistakes as part of that learning journey. Without them, you're not challenging yourself. You're just continuing to do what's safe. The other thing I would say is all of us need to think about psychological safety. Are we safe to fail? Are we safe to make that mistake? And what would allow for us to be in a place, in a space that would would allow for us to feel the safety to take that, risk, this informed risk that will push us to this next level. Psychological safety is important, especially right now when we all feel vulnerable. We're vulnerable in this new work environment. We're vulnerable in, an environment that has so much unknown.
Yeah.
Different, unknown, unpredictable. So, the idea of psychological safety in this, atmosphere of unknown is really important. We're going to fail. I mean, these are environments nobody's navigated before. And so let's think of it as, okay, we're going to learn how to navigate this new space. And when we do that, it's a continuous growth mindset. We're growing with each positive and negative reaction to the journey.
I love it. So for all of us, reframe it, right?
Yeah.
It's not that all is lost. It's that you're learning, you're growing. And it's proof, honestly, you're pushing your edge. It's proof you're pushing your edge if you're making some mistakes and you're doing some new and different things. I want to talk about culture for a minute. You used that word at one point. There are plenty of corporate leaders today who've maybe made a statement about diversity and inclusion, or maybe they have a business case they've put together for diversity and inclusion, but they may be struggling to actually act and weave that into the everyday fabric of the company. Do you have some advice or recommendations for a company like that? One thing they could do to take action?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, culture, and that's part of this, discussion. Culture is so important, but how do you put culture into action? How do you put behaviors that align with the culture that you want? And so that's really the thing. If diversity and inclusion is really a priority, and it should be, because all of the data tells you that your company is going to grow. It's going to be more innovative and more profitable if you have diverse teams. So if diversity and inclusion is important, then for it to be a part of your culture, those culture pillars, those elements need to be part of the performance process. Mm-hmm. If you want your leaders to be inclusive, then they have to be evaluated on their inclusive leadership. There should be feedback on how they're doing, just like there would be feedback on whether or not they're meeting any other business goal. So it's accountability. But it's also, making people understand that as part of, their expectations, either as an individual contributor or a people leader. The expectation is that you're contributing by your behaviors every day to that culture pillar, which is aligned with diversity and inclusion. Whatever it is that person can do, whether it's among their team members, whether it's decisions about promotions or hiring, or it's contributions to making the environment more inclusive, so that it feeds retention and development of others.
Awesome. And so for anyone looking to make that culture change, you've got to translate it, right, to behavior. You've got to give it teeth, it sounds like you're saying, Anne, with rewards or evaluation and looking at that behavior.
Yes.
Really important piece. I've seen some corporate leaders who are kind of frozen, not sure even how to address bias or injustice in the world right now. And I'm kind of curious what you would say to those folks would be a really good first step.
Yeah. So, I'm sitting in, St. Paul, Minnesota, right where the tragedy of George Floyd's killing happened. And what I advised our CEO to do, and we did, is to immediately have a candid conversation about race. It's one of those things that many of us don't have a lot of experience with, the muscle of being able to have, for many, an uncomfortable conversation about the realities of racism in our country. So that's what I would recommend. The first step is to start a conversation, to develop a fluency about race and how it impacts, the environment, the lives, the perspectives of the workforce and in the community. I mean, we all, are having conversations with our family. There are, protests going on. There's a global movement related to civil rights right now. For us not to talk about it is a missed opportunity. It ignores the reality of our circumstance. So develop a fluency for talking about it. And then, again, back to the point of data, be transparent about your data. Because oftentimes what you'll see is people will say, I had no idea. Even with the history of racism in our country, because we haven't been talking about it, when you look at the raw data of disparities in the community for people of color, people have sometimes no idea how wide the gaps are, how disparate the treatment is. So if you're willing to talk about it and you're willing to face the facts, as James Baldwin would say, we can't change everything, but we can't change anything until we face it, right? So we need to face the facts. We need to be able to have conversations, and then we can move to action.
Wow. Yep. May all of us lean into discomfort and uncomfortable, honest, open conversations. Yeah. Ahmed is praising the many wonderful things women bring to leadership roles, and asking the question, I think, how can we get more women into leadership roles? I wondered if you have a short take on that. Are there ways you would like to see, companies get more women into those top positions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, because especially right now with women oftentimes being, on triple duty. I'm a full-time worker. I'm a full-time educator of my children who are being educated from home. And I'm also trying to, run a household.
Right. Just that.
So yeah, give me something else, right? So, and we're a global company. We have, some of these issues for women around the world where there are expectations for them to be the caregiver of aging parents. There are expectations, for them, to support their husband's career. So that means that they have to sacrifice some of their own career preferences. So, whatever women choose to do, whether they choose to, pursue a career at home or at work, in a workplace, I really think that supporting each other is important. Women supporting women, men supporting women, and companies supporting the flexibility it will require for women to wear all these different hats and fill all these expectations. The expectations aren't going to change overnight for all of the responsibilities of working women and women with families. So how can we, as women, be supportive, but how can we have processes and policies in place that allow for the flexibility that's needed? This pandemic in 9 months has proven to us that we can be productive from wherever we are, whether it's from a home office that I'm sitting in right now, or the office that I used to go to every single day, with a 30-minute commute back and forth and warming a chair, for 8 to 12 hours. So has my work changed because I'm warming this chair as opposed to this chair in my office 30 minutes away? I've been more productive, to be honest, because I don't spend time commuting. And, there was a lot of, there's, for us, our campus is 400 acres with a whole bunch of buildings. So even commuting between one meeting to another, there's downtime in that. So some would say, well, yeah, flexibility is important, but there's, this magic sauce that happens when people come together, and that's going to inspire innovation. And there is some truth to that. But that doesn't, it doesn't mean that there's some latitude, right? So flexibility on a scale for certain positions that may require in-person meetings. But I just think more flexibility in being a leader, in ways that we can make it work for women that have all of these obligations and expectations is really what we need to think about to inspire more women to feel that they have the bandwidth to be leaders. And then the other thing I would say is, oftentimes women, and, McKinsey and Catalyst have, shown us with data that women don't think they're ready, or they don't have enough qualification to do a leadership role. Whereas, a man with the same qualifications would feel much more likely to be ready. So the issue there for me is, how are you defining ready, and what do you think it is that you need to develop to get to that point? Because if it's really, I need to have, X number of years doing, leading a team or doing something like that, I would just analyze what it is you think, what qualities of a leader you're going to gain from that. People leaders, and we started the conversation with how I define leadership. You can be the kind of leader that your skills and your characteristics allows for you to be. Just because someone else has defined leadership as, a person with a hierarchy that does X, Y, and Z and has this background, doesn't mean that's the kind of leader you have to be. So defining your own style of leadership and how you could best create an opportunity to leverage that's what's important.
Wow. Thank you. I think you've inspired us here to really make our career our own and our leadership our own. And Ahmed, I hope you'll keep asking questions like that. I love that you brought that question up with all of your support. And this has been so powerful, and I want to thank you for your work. I think it takes a lot of courage to challenge norms every day and cultures and really make work somewhere that's welcoming to people of all walks. So thanks for being the mirror and the voice to so many of these issues that are inspiring others to do better. In the show notes, everyone, I'd love for you to check out some links to articles, either about Ann or another one by Ann that's really powerful, so you can get to know her better. I also hope you will stay in touch with me. You can check out my LinkedIn learning courses on being that fierce self-advocate. You can sign up to be part of my newsletter tribe. And if you're not already, please follow me here on LinkedIn to learn from more incredible people like Ann. Thank you so much, Ann. Thank you to our really wonderful community. I hope all of you stay healthy, stay well, and lead on.
Thank you for raising women's voice.